Good morning, and welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. Because Johnson County has moved into the COVID red zone, our service today is online only. This is our first all-online service in quite a while, so please give us grace. Should there be a pause in the flow, please use that opportunity to take a slow, deep breath and relax. We are happy that you've chosen this Sabbath, this sanctuary, this YouTube channel. We know that you have many options on Sunday morning, and that you chose to be with us is something we celebrate. We extend an especially warm welcome to anyone who may be watching online for the first time. Please complete our Get in Touch form, our online form, by clicking the link below in our video description. We now invite everyone watching to greet each other by saying a quick hi in the chat space. Also, if you have a joy or sorrow you'd like to share, please feel free to do so in the chat window as well. But remember, our online service is open to the public. Thank you. And now I have just a couple announcements. We are honored today to have author-artist Evie Lennon as our guest speaker. I'm not going to give anything away about Evie's sermon, but I can tell you that following the service, copies of Evie's book, Drawing Comfort for Chronic Conditions, was supposed to be available for sale. Since we're in COVID red and online only today, if Evie's talk intrigues you and you'd like to purchase a copy of her book, you may do so by going to the Barnes & Noble website and searching for Evie's name as the author. That's Barnes & Noble, all one word, .com, and in the search box, search for Evie Lennon, E-V-I-E-L-E-N-N-O-N. We will also have books at a later date to be announced. You will hear more about Evie in a moment. Next, a quick reminder that we are having an all-church picnic on Saturday, August 13th at Shawnee Mission Park. So far, 55 people have signed up to attend. We'd like everyone coming to register for the event so we'll know how much food and drink to have on hand. Your weekly all-church email has a link for you to sign up to attend the picnic, and it also has a link for you to sign up to help in some way. And thanks a bunch to Phil and Sandra Hannon for organizing this great event. Finally, I'm pleased to report that the trees on the church grounds that were damaged in a recent storm have been pruned and removed. And both entrance drives to the church property are now open when we eventually use them. You may have noticed that our church monument sign out by Flum Road was badly damaged during the storm and needs to be replaced. If you would like to provide input or assistance in replacing the sign, let the Facilities Committee know by sending your thoughts and ideas to facilities@SMUUCh.org. That's the email address for the Facilities Committee. It's facilities@SMUUCh.org. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. Come, let us worship. Please join us at home, we can hear you, singing our first hymn, number 90, From the Fret and Fever of the Day. From all the fret and fever of the day, let there be moments when we turn away, and deaf to all confusing outer din, intently listen for the voice within. In quietness and solitude we find the soundless wisdom of the deeper mind. With clear harmonious purpose let us then bring richer meaning to the voice within. As Colette Pancho comes forward to light our chalice, please join me to recite our covenant. Let us affirm that love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Each month, we as a community take time to reflect on a theme. The children do this in their classes, and we do it here in worship and in our small groups. This month, the theme is being a community of transformation. I have known Evie Lennon, our guest lecturer, for 35 years, and she is a gifted artist, teacher, and chaplain. 20 years ago, I attended a play she co-created, Treasure Island, starring kids with profound disabilities. The students' performances defied my expectations and touched me deeply. Evie struggled to rebuild after her autoimmune disease seriously disrupted her personal and professional life. And I believe we have a slide for that. And next slide, please. There we go. She persevered even when she was physically weak and emotionally exhausted, using her bountiful artistic talent to create the cartoons and prose that would become her first book, Drawing Comfort for Chronic Conditions, an art, journaling, and survival guide. Evie shows us via her cartoon alter ego, Lucky Starzinski, that creativity can help us discover our deepest truths, revive our spirits, and help us push past limitations. Her art offers hope and encouragement to those with health challenges, as well as anyone looking to face life with more humor and imagination. It was a labor of love to edit her book. Its richly textured cartoons offer both social commentary and inspiration, and its 30 simple yet powerful exercises called Creative Sparks unlock our imaginations. Throughout her journey to better health, it is inspiring to me that Evie never loses sight of others who are also struggling with health issues, whom she calls chronic health heroes. And in this slide, you can see that Evie is a born encourager, especially for her 16-year-old daughter, Alma, who thrives while managing paraplegia and epilepsy. We don't have to be Little League coaches to be great encouragers. The opportunity presents itself often. The word encourage comes from the French word to inspire with courage, spirit, or hope, to spur on. Encouragement also reinforces good habits and lets people know they are on the right track. This month's theme is being in a community of transformation. I believe encouragement has a life-changing, transformative power. Use it abundantly. Today, may you find encouragement in Evie's words that you can use for yourself and for others when they need it most. I'm pleased to introduce you to my best friend and hero that you'll hear from later, Evie Lennon. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Jen Lacey, who will lead our Time for All Ages.
Picture a garden in your mind. What do you see? Flowers? What color are those flowers? Insects? What do they look like? Today we are going to read the book, Just Ask, Be Different, Be Brave, Be You, by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. As you listen to the story, pay attention to how the children in garden in this book are different, brave, and unique. Hi, I'm Sonia. My friends and I are planting a garden. Gardens are magical places. Thousands of plants bloom together, but every flower, every berry, and every leaf is different. Each has a different smell, different color, different shape, and different purpose. Some flowers need lots of sunlight. Others thrive in the shade. Some have to be trimmed regularly, while others are better off left alone. Some trees and flowers are more fragile, and others are more hardy. Kids are all different too. Some of us are in a hurry. Others take more time. Some of us seem shy and quiet, while others are chatty and loud. Some of our differences are easy to spot. Others take longer to notice. Each of us grow in our own way, so if you are curious about other kids, just ask. Not everyone is comfortable answering questions about themselves, but I don't mind. What am I doing? Several times a day, I prick my finger to measure the sugar in my blood, and I give myself shots of medicine called insulin. I do this because I have diabetes, and my body doesn't make insulin naturally like other people's. Even though this can sometimes hurt, I gather all of my courage to do it to be healthy. Do you ever need to take medicine to be healthy? I do. My name is Raphael, and I have asthma, which means I sometimes have trouble breathing. When that happens, I take a break and use an inhaler with medicine to make breathing easier. Quiet time helps me slow down and catch my breath. My inhaler is like a tool to help my body. Do you use a tool to help your body? I'm Anthony. I use a wheelchair to get around. Even though I can't run with my legs, I can go super fast. How do you get from place to place? My name is Madison, and my guide dog, Lucky, helps me get places safely because I'm blind. My friend Arturo is blind too. He uses a cane to get around. Even though we can't see, we strengthen our other senses and notice lots of details of. How do you use your senses? I'm Vijay. I learn about the world differently because I can see, but I can't hear. I'm deaf. Most of the time, I communicate with people using my face and hands through sign language. It's cool to know another language. I also love reading and writing. What about you? I'm Bianca, and I have dyslexia, so I have to work really hard and take my time when I'm reading and writing words. Sometimes I use computer programs to help me. I love learning by doing things. My imagination is full of ideas, and I'm very good at making art from the pictures I see in my mind. Are you really good at something? I'm great at dinosaurs. I know all about them. I'm Jordan, and I have autism. Organizing and counting all my toy dinosaurs again and again makes me feel calm. My classmate, Tiana, also has autism, but it's different for her. She doesn't talk. But I like to talk. I especially like to talk about dinosaurs. What do you like to talk about? For me, listening comes more easily than talking, and I'm a really good listener. My name is An, and I speak with a stutter, so I sometimes repeat a word or get stuck when I try to say it. It may take me a little longer to express myself, and sometimes I'm too shy to talk, but I understand everything that's going on. Do you ever wonder if people understand you? Here you go. I do. My name is Julia. Sometimes I wiggle or make sounds that I can't control because I have Tourette's syndrome. People may look at me funny because they think I am not paying attention or just acting out, but it's not true. I am listening. I don't always like having to explain. It's frustrating to me, but it helps when I tell people that it's just what my body does. Do you ever feel frustrated? My name is Manuel, and I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It is also called ADHD. I can get frustrated when I really feel the need to move around even though I'm supposed to sit still. When my teachers and friends are patient with me, if I forget something or get distracted, I can get myself back on track. What's helpful to you? I'm Nolan. It's helpful to me when the food I eat has a clear label that says it is nut-free, because I'm allergic to nuts. They can make me so sick that I would have to go to the hospital if I ate any, even by accident. So I always tell people about my allergy and ask if any food has nut ingredients. Speaking up keeps me healthy. How do you use your voice? I love to sing and I love to talk. I love to make friends and be included. I am Grace. I was born with Down syndrome. Kids like me with Down syndrome have an extra building block called a chromosome in our bodies, but we are all different from each other too. I can do almost anything any other kid can do, though learning new things can take some time. One way I learn is to ask questions. What helps you learn? It's me, Sonia, again. I ask questions too when something seems different or new. I just ask my parents or my teachers and they help me to understand, especially if my friends don't feel ready to explain. This is what I've learned. Imagine if all of the plants in this garden were exactly the same. Like, what if we only could grow peas? That would mean no strawberries or cucumbers or carrots. It might also mean no trees or roses or sunflowers. Just like in our garden, all the ways we are different make our neighborhood, our whole world, really more interesting and fun. Just like all of these plants, each of us have unique powers to share with the world and make it more interesting and richer. What will you do with your powers? What is something that makes you different from the people in your family? What about the people in your community? How do our differences make our communities more interesting and fun? What might be some ways we can build relationships with people who are different from us?
Thank you, AV team and Jen, for being so nimble on your feet. And now I invite you to continue sharing your joys and sorrows in the video chat as we light our candles to acknowledge them. If you're watching online with someone, please share your joy or concern with them. If today you are an audience of one, consider speaking your joy or concern out loud. When we name our joys and concerns and speak them, our joys can seem a bit brighter and our concerns a little lighter to carry. And now we'll sing our meditative hymn number 389, Gathered Here.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour,
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
Let's talk about a civil rights trailblazer that you may not have heard of, Judy Heumann. Raised by parents who were survivors of the Holocaust, Heumann was one of the most influential founders of the disability rights movement. She contracted polio when she was 18 months old, and the disease left her unable to walk. After her parents fought for her daughter's right to an equal education in the 1950s and 1960s, Heumann advocated for her right to live in her dorm room and successfully sued to obtain her teaching license, even when the ACLU did not take her case. Heumann and her fellow activists emulated the strategies of the women's movement and the civil rights movement. In the late 1970s, they pressured the Carter administration to sign Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which would become the first federal law to protect the rights of people with disabilities and grant them access to federal programs. The more comprehensive Americans with Disabilities Act didn't pass until July of 1990. At the signing ceremony, President George Herbert Walker Bush said, "Let the shameful walls of exclusion finally come tumbling down." Heumann has appeared on TED Talks and in the 2020 Netflix documentary Crip Camp, A Disability Revolution. In 2021, she wrote her memoir, Being Human, an unrepentant memoir of a disability rights activist. Let's listen to her words describe her life's work to improve access and opportunities around the world. "It is not my role to wait for other people to change their views toward disabled people. The reason why I feel so strongly about laws is that we need laws that clearly define what discrimination is, so that when discrimination occurs, there is something we can do about it. Disability is a family you can join at any point in your life. We as a society need to recognize that we are able to make contributions with and without disabilities. It's the barriers that are put before people that really reduce our ability to contribute and feel valued. And as we're able to continue to advance, ultimately, we make the better world a place for all." And now, Evie Lennon will present Enlightenment Beyond Measure, the yardsticks in the trash.
Thank you for having me here. I'm a little hung up. I think so. Sorry about that delay. And also thank you to Melissa and Colette for being hosts and my dear friends for years. When I was an art teacher, I made up this game that the kids absolutely loved. And I was so sorry that I did because they constantly asked to play. The car game required one paper plate and some chairs, and that Mercedes-Benz took us all over the world. The trips we took made the drawings that we did of animals, scenery, and landmarks from those places come alive for the kids. One day, it was Kenny's turn to drive. Without warning, he put the steering wheel down, got out of the car, and started walking away, leaving the rest of us to sit in the hot sun. Naturally, I called out to him, rolled down the window, and said, "Kenny, where are you going? Are you okay?" And he turned around and he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, "I'm thirsty. I stopped at the gas station to get something to drink. You guys want anything?" I didn't know it then, but riding around with Kenny was just the beginning of a field trip through the world of disability. You see, I was teaching at a very special school affiliated with Children's Mercy Hospital. We served any students whose disabilities or medical needs were too profound to be met by other special education departments in the Kansas City, Missouri School District. Though I taught special ed students before, I was in shock when I met my new students. I didn't even know that kids could be that sick or that disabled. I guess it showed on my face because my colleague, Casey Stanton, made his way over to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, I know it can be overwhelming. He reassured me, but you will adjust. And then he said something to me that I never forgot. He said, "It's important that you don't confuse their situation with who they are." It was good advice. At the end of the day, they were kids waiting for their art lesson, and they needed me to pick up my chalk and start teaching and quit weeping like I was on a telethon. Mr. Stanton was right, though, and soon enough, their personalities and idiosyncrasies did take front and center. And if I could have the slide. Oh, thank you. My coworker is standing with Mackenzie, who manages to be a total diva and benevolent all at once. Her boyfriend, Khalil, was a prince among men. His very presence was so consoling that I would find myself leaning on his example during my darkest hours years later. Although they were nonverbal, they had the best sense of humor and communication skills of any couple I've met. I had to learn how to make a difference. The previous year, I had chaired Paseo's art department, guiding seniors to compete for art scholarships to schools like RISD and Pratt. Now my charge included students who could not hold a pencil, and I began to learn terms like hand over hand. By the time I had completed 2 years at Delano, 3 of my students would lose their lives to their medical complications. Like several of my colleagues, I felt called to a second career working at a children's hospital. But those experiences, though touched by sorrow, as all of life is, led to discovering wisdom and beauty that I've come to share with you today. One of my favorite Rumi quotes is, "There is a secret medicine given only to those who hurt so hard they can't hope. The hopers would feel slighted if they knew." Colette let me know that I'm not the only person here today that was raised Catholic, so I hope you'll appreciate a good confession. Even though I experienced the Holy Spirit in many places like hospitals, drumming circles, and sweat lodges, I occasionally secretly longed for the mystical experience of communion. When I knew I was going to be with you here today, I felt something stirring in me, and in an instant, before I could fully identify the feeling, I felt the familiar experience of entering a sacramental space with you. Even though I have only attended your church online, I see that you are also willing to be transported to another world. I see that when the triumphs and tribulations of others become as real to you as the Coke in Kenny's hand, that we enter into the Holy of Holies, and the spark of imagination becomes a divine spark. And I have seen that spirit of oneness lived out with such mercy and might and grace here that it's caused me to show up differently than I thought. So I'm here today, not only as an art teacher or a hospital chaplain, but as a person struggling with a serious disease, and a parent who has spent far too many nights at the children's hospital with her daughter. They say we teach what we most need to learn, and I've always said that what we can't speak of, we can't heal from. But by your very spirit, SMUUCh, I found myself wanting to share the story behind the stories in my book that I've hidden like pills from the veterinarian in spoonfuls of peanut butter and chunks of cheese. And actually, through the encouragement of my friends, I kept trying to tell other people's stories, and they encouraged me to tell mine. I hope that sharing the ingredients in the medicine provides healing for all of us. So today I invite you to join me on a field trip through a few of the highlights of my whirlwind journey by way of the card game. Because this is a magical vehicle, the dashboard's magically up here now, and you're already in your correct seats. Is everybody ready to go on a field trip? Cool. Oh, I forgot to mention that our Mercedes-Benz also does intergalactic travel. So if you look up, when the next slide comes up, it's actually has the moon. That oh, I saw it. There it is. Oh, yeah, go back one. That's it. He's tiny in bed. So you guys can see the moon there, taking a snooze. And the moon is mourning right now. People used to write songs about him. Now, unfortunately, the stars that you see surrounding the moon are just the plastic ones that you paste on the walls and the ceiling, the ones that glow in the dark. His roommate, Lucky Starzinski, bought them for him to ease the blow of losing his moonlighting job. And don't you guys think it looks like they glued them to the floor as well? I doubt they're going to get their deposit back. But the moon was given the pink slip when his chronic condition took him out of commission. Although most people call the moon by his formal name, his closest friends call him M-Dog, including Lucky, the character who is in bed next to him. Lucky really represents me, as well as maybe a universal underdog, because there was a time when I only had the moon to talk to. M-Dog had yellow jaundice, which resulted in him becoming blue, and that's why he lost his job. And it was easy for other people to tell the moon that, oh, he'll find something else to do for a living besides lighting up the sky. But M-Dog couldn't imagine what he could ever do that would mean as much. M-Dog is a big part of me too. Like him, I lost my career for medical reasons. And once M-Dog retired, any glowing descriptions about the moon were deep-sixed from the astronomy books. People would never know that he pulled the tides of the ocean, illuminated the night, or that he was to stars what peanut butter was to jelly. The one thing that surprised me about becoming disabled is that nothing you did seemed to count anymore. You became a nobody. It was then that I realized that when you broke down the word invalid, it meant not valid. You don't always lose your job when you become seriously ill, but you are most always robbed of your dignity and voice. M-Dog was never quite the same after losing his gig in the sky. I had my own constellation of activities where I once shined at school and at the hospital, and I felt lost too. I guess that's why I drew M-Dog and Lucky in the first place. The things that happened to me after I became seriously ill were so painful that I couldn't talk about it. So I delegated the task of storytelling to them. I wouldn't find out for the next 13 years that I belonged to a proud minority community because their civil rights stories were also eliminated from the history books. And if I could have the next slide. Oh, you're so ahead. In 1977, over 150 activists occupied a San Francisco government building for 26 days. Rather than gaining the floor for their efforts, they lost access to food, to medicine, because the officials strove to force their hand by blocking phone lines, by turning off the hot water. Since their voices were squelched, some of the activists who were deaf were able to go to the window and sign to the other deaf protesters to get help, and the Black Panthers rushed to their aid. 13 years later, when activists abandoned their wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, and canes to climb up the steps of the United States Capitol to demand passage of the American Disabilities Act, when the police attempted to arrest the protesters, they struggled to find accessible paddy wagons to bring them to jail. That was pretty cool. No one ever said that walking in the light, and if I could have the next slide, it's not always a flattering light. Being well in your soul doesn't mean that you won't have long excursions on the struggle bus, or in this case, the struggle boat. I have a daughter named Alma Mater, which I called her that because I learned so much from her. And I wanted ramps for her too. And I don't just want the ramps at Alma's school so that she can benefit from the school. I also don't want the school to be denied, missing out on her influence and her insight and her wit. It's not the disabled who are less than whole. We all are not as complete without everyone. We don't have to go inside for this next stop because it takes place outside. My daughter is about to enter the 2nd grade. Every year we give a talk to her classmates so they won't be confused or scared about navigating a classmate in a wheelchair. So if you look over there, you see us walking down the sidewalk. We're actually on our way to Trader Joe's. And we're deciding what she most wants her classmates to know. above all, she wants them to know that she is strong, and she does have incredible upper body strength from using the chair. She can hold herself up like Simone Biles. We decided we would scoot tables close together like parallel bars in the classroom and see if her classmates could hold themselves up as long as she could. Later, this will be a massive success. She is a marvel to the other 6 and 7-year-olds trying to erect themselves for a second, not approaching the minutes that she's able to suspend her body in the air. But then as we're talking about this, a cloud suddenly goes across her face. I'm sure you could see it. And she asked me a question I couldn't have anticipated. But to explain my answer, I'll need to answer a question you might already have. Why is she in a wheelchair? Sadly, what brought her to the hospital where I worked was bone-breaking abuse that she suffered at the hands of her biological mother and boyfriend. And the last bone they broke was her spine. And the doctor said she would never walk again. Alma was aware of this, and we were advised to tell her. And I will call her perpetrator Alejandro. She acknowledged the things that her classmates could do, like run and jump and skip. And she said, "Do you think if my spine had not been broken, that I would be able to do these things?" A part of her felt that she might be intrinsically flawed. I explained that Alejandro didn't just hurt baby Alma Mater, but that he hurt 4-year-old Alma and 6-year-old Alma because he robbed her of those activities every year. I also explained that that could have happened to anybody. And I said that if it had happened to one of your classmates, they would have had the same problems. I said, "But honey, it happened to you, and it wasn't your fault." The day we went to school to do our presentation, we stood in front of her class, making the points as we had rehearsed. My daughter turned to me spontaneously and said, "Mama L, tell them about 6-year-old Alma and 7-year-old Alma." I'm going to tell you another story about some of the degradation that I experienced from ableism that hurt 8-year-old Alma and 16-year-old Alma, and experiences that hurt 50-year-old Evie and 59-year-old Evie, although you're probably surprised I'm that old, I know. A situation that hurt me in my role, my most cherished role, as a protector. And if I could have the next slide. That face, I would do anything. What has deepened that maternal drive that all parents have is what people can't see, even though she's visibly disabled. It is the sorrows that only myself and her other mom have witnessed. She's actually in the hospital right now, so it's hard. Ableism damaged my most cherished commodity, the ability to empower my daughter in my role as a mother. And the best way to show you, and I'm going to ask for this slide early, is a presentation that Colette actually helped me prepare. Back in 2014 was when I was in the throes of a custody battle. And all of the work that she put into this, and this is just a fraction, she was trying to help me distill who I was and what I had to offer as a mother. And although that it would fall on deaf ears, her actions would still be redemptive later. I could have never imagined that being ignored without a voice would apply to the minority group that is the disabled community. Everything in my life prepared me to be my daughter's mother, but I lived in one of 37 states that said a disabled parent is the less fit parent. And I hope that when my daughter becomes a mother, as she has indicated her desire to adopt, that the court will see that she is so much more than the hazards that can be avoided by having an able-bodied parent. Recently, a mother who was a wheelchair user lost her custody to her ex-boyfriend, the father, because he would be able to teach the boy how to run, whereas she could not. Like M-Dog, my years of experience, in my case of teaching kids, many of whom relied on wheelchairs like alma mater, my years of being a chaplain who faced surgeries, being a chaplain for patients who face surgeries like the 22 that my daughter has endured, did not matter. The guardian ad litem assigned to my custody mediation openly ridiculed me when I finally showed up at her office after she refused to take my calls or emails for 14 months straight. I felt like I was watching the movie Crip Camp that showed the officials ignoring the activist. Even though it would be 8 months after the mediation that I would be rushed to the hospital by ambulance, and it was discovered my heart had undergone structural damage and was failing. I felt it happening, and it only heightened my focus on all that I wanted to give to Alma and all that I had learned from my students. There's a saying that every time a person dies, a library burns, and I feared that the guardian ad litem would thwart my daughter's ability to check books out from this mind and heart. Colette put the presentation together to try to show the guardian ad litem what was in my heart, and listed all the grants and productions and opportunities that I had devoted my life to giving to kids just like alma mater. And the one time parents can make allegations about a parent causing possible harm from a disability is without proof, is if the other parent's disabled. A sentence on our court papers said that I never attended my daughter's IEP meetings. In reality, I was on the PTA, co-sponsored the Glee Club. I took her and our stepson and 3 other disabled foster children to physical therapy, OT, speech therapy, the orthodontist, the doctor, the GI, urologist, orthodontist, and so on, as well as the circus and throwing stones in a creek nearby. But the dedication that I showed personally and professionally was eclipsed by my label. I still have a good life with her, but being seen as such a non-persona is something I've never been able to speak of until now. While I've been blessed to share custody, the characterization of me as absent without proof denied me access to her benefits with no consideration for the special needs she had in my home, which has been impoverishing. Gandhi said that poverty is the worst form of violence, and it is physically punishing. There are times I've needed to choose between my medicine and food, which has disempowered my strength as a parent. I was recently without health insurance for most of this year. It's been 8 years since I was stonewalled, and my daughter is currently in the hospital. I do not have an address right now. That's about to change. Being transformed, though, is not about going from a circumstance of challenge to a state of grace, but about knowing that our sanctity is not dependent on deliverance. When some of us came out, we had to push back against the paradigm that we could only be in a relationship of sanctity if we were in a traditional couple. And when some of us became disabled, we had to push back against the equally dogmatic thinking that equates your degree of wellness and wealth and success with your level of spiritual alignment. But you only have to spend one night in a cancer unit with parents who sold everything they own to save their 7-year-old to know that there's so much mystery. Being enlightened is not dependent upon whether we are required to persevere or being given a reprieve. And if we have any doubts, all we have to do is look to people who knew this to be true, like Elie Wiesel, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Judy Heumann. allowing ourselves to be transported to each other's world, no matter what direction the wind is blowing, and allowing the joy that comes from our absolute oneness with each other, whether we are standing with someone in the midst of despair or in the throes of celebration, is where we find hope. One last slide. I want to conclude with a quote by Sister Joan Chittister. The whole purpose of wrestling with God is to be transformed into the self that we are meant to become, to step outside the confines of our certainties and allow our God to go on creating us and creating in us. No doubt about it, it is hope that enables us to continue the climb, knowing that it may be only one more step to the summit. And even though the guardian ad litem never read the documents that Colette created in an attempt to distill the essence that I had to give, I came across it this year not by coincidence. And I didn't think that I would ever be able to speak of this publicly, but it just takes one person to see the you in you so that you can take just one more step. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evie. The work of the church depends on us, our generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values. You can make your offering online by clicking the link below in our video description. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn is number 289, Creative Love, Our Thanks We Give.
What we choose is what we are, and what we love we yet shall be. The gold may ever shine afar, the will to reach it makes us free.
And now for our benediction. Let us feed the hope that comes out of despair. Whatever the struggle, we must continue the climb.